Good evening, everyone. How's everybody today? Welcome to the King Arts Complex, where dreams come alive. We are excited that you joined us this evening, even in the rain and even right after work, so thank you for coming out. We know this is going to be a great evening, but before we get started, and before I introduce Congresswoman Beatty, would you all rise and follow me in pledge allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all.
Could you check the Facebook and make sure it's working?
So it is fitting that we are here today, this being the 400th anniversary of the arrival of Africans in America, enslaved Africans in America. Of course, we were here before Columbus, but that's another story. But the arrival of enslaved Africans in America is 400 years. Today is the anniversary of that. So it is fitting that we are here to discuss housing and the lack thereof. You know, housing, it's the whole thing, right? If you have safe housing and affordable housing, you and your family are safe. If you don't, it makes you very timid in terms of your interactions with yourself and your family and others. So this is an important subject. We want to talk about it, and Congresswoman Beatty has been talking about it all day, and so you'll hear a lot about it, and she wants you to talk about it as well. I'd like to introduce you to our Congresswoman, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. So before she takes the mic, I just want to say, Congresswoman Beatty, she is our friend, our supporter, our family. She helped start the King Arts Complex. So all this beauty you see here, she gets the credit for it. And she and Otto continue to be major supporters. So she's invested in this community. She's not in DC. I don't know how she does it. She's like the Energizer battery. Like last week, I think she was out of the country, in DC, and in Columbus, all the same week. Maybe in Africa or something, I'm not sure. But Congresswoman Joyce Beatty.
And I really want to thank you for those far too kind words, because tonight is really about us. And it's a very serious topic. I didn't come up with this. We get thousands and thousands of calls throughout the year, throughout the congressional session. And what I can share with you is what I know. That we have constituents who are doing extremely well. We have constituents who have fallen below the economic threshold to basically only survive, whether they're doing it through a homeless shelter, whether they're doing it in a box in our community on the street, whether it's someone's garage or they're couch surfing as a young person, to those who have found that American dream and rented a home, to those who can't rent a home because it's not affordable, to those who have become first-time home buyers, to those where that American dream is not within the reality at all. That's what the district is made of. Now we know the numbers and the statistics. If you've read any report from any of the local, the state, or the federal organizations or offices, we know that people don't make enough money to buy a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment or condo or to pay for it, because we have to do better. We know we don't have equal pay for equal work, and we know that we have more than 50% of the working population to be women. We know that in our communities that there are disparities. Some people would ask me, why did we pick this site? And this site has the second lowest census tract as it relates to economics. So when we thought about it, we thought we wanted you to be comfortable because it's going to be a long 2 hours. We also looked at the #1 lowest census tract, and we could have gone to the West Side, West Belt. We could have gone to Wedgewood or Holly Hills, where we were earlier today. So this isn't the only place that we're going. We spent the same amount of hours for 2 hours driving through the 3rd Congressional District with experts. And what we heard is this is a universal problem. But for African Americans, when you look at the disparities, the numbers are greater. We heard from our experts with the homeless shelter. When we look at the people there, they are more African Americans. But if I go to the west side, and as I traveled to Sullivan Gardens, I had people there who were not telling their stories. So while the disparities point to more folks who look like me, I took an oath to represent all people. But we have to start where the numbers are the greatest, because if you improve in the greatest area, I believe you can only take that model and improve upon it in the other areas. But this is not something that one person, one vote can do. We've tried. I'm not here to point fingers at anybody, but I'm here to be held accountable to hear from you live and up close. So let me tell you what the day started out so I can set some parameters and share with you where we are. Because I think engagement in education is the first step when we're talking about a movement. Because that's what I believe we have to create. No more meetings, no more just talking, no more plans, and I said it earlier, no more studies, but we need execution. And that came out loud and clear that we have folks in these front 2 rows that have done some amazing things with a plan and coupling dollars, and they're ready to execute, but they don't want to do that without you. And I'm going to be full force engaged that we can bring people in, because here's the other thing that I learned this morning. This morning we had about 50 people in the room of stakeholders, funders, developers, constituents, commission folks from all over the district. And we heard a lot of different stories. And there was a lot of blame to go around, and there was a lot of people who owned up that we don't have a movement, because so often we're fighting each other. And here's the thing that I know. We can't make progress with it being us and them. We can't do that. I also know that as one person, I'm not gonna come and make a whole bunch of promises and tell you, you know, it's not that bad, because the statistics speak for themselves. But I do come with hope. I also know, after having a thorough history today, going back to the post-war, to after the war, the whole issue of redlining, the whole history from Mr. Sullivan and Sullivan Gardens to Bronzeville, to where we are here, to Westgate, 2 whole hours looking at mostly the 3rd Congressional District. But we came back here to the heart of it because it's one of the lowest census tracts that we need to deal with. But we have some of the most historical folks and folks who live here, who have information here, that we all don't have as a collective community. And that's what I heard this morning. I also heard that we know that money is part of the issue. We actually had people to fly in from Washington, D.C., from FHFA. We had people from HUD. We had people from the Federal Reserve Bank brought in. And some of them said, we need to come home and look closer to home at the city level, at the state level, at the county level, and even, yes, the federal people at the federal level. Because we can bring millions of dollars here. $30 million for a pilot project that leverages some $225 million for this community. But if we're not engaged in it and we don't have a say in it, oftentimes at the end of the day, people don't know how much we've moved the needle. Have we moved the needle somewhat? Yes. Is it enough? Absolutely not. Can we see it and feel it? If you can't, that's why we're here. We need to talk about accessibility, affordability, sustainability. When I heard this morning from our treasurer, and we have a whole lot of people that I'm going to ask to speak, and we're going to put microphones. I have people who are scribing. I have taken notes, so we can hear from you. And there's not anything nothing is scripted. So whatever you feel like sharing or saying, I want you to feel comfortable enough that you can do this, or this is in vain. You know, we have to hear it to work toward it collectively. But when we hear that many of the things we need to look at are programs and projects and policies, coupled with looking at the 3 levels, we have those who are in the homeless world, however you want to put it, whether they're in a shelter or on the street, homeless, we know what that means. Then we have the individuals that are at the level, they are renters. And then we have the people who are homeowners. And we know we have problems at every area. Being homeless, it speaks for itself. Being a renter that can't afford to rent in an area because you can't have access to it, or you can't afford it, or the neighborhood changes and you now are relocated or by choice don't want to be there. And then we have the homeowners, those who are first time, those who want to be homeowners, or those who are losing their homes. And then we heard some alarming things to some, that we have, let's say, seniors, people who are in their homes and they own it outright. So they don't have the issue of not being able to meet a mortgage note, but there's something called property taxes. When you hear that 30% of those folks in this community are losing their homes because they can't pay their property taxes, something's wrong with this community. And we're all at fault for it, because we are better than that. Now, once that statement was said, it was amazing to me how people started talking about, I didn't know that, let's figure out how we can figure it out. There were some good suggestions that might fit some, but there is no one size that fits all. And that's where you come in. So we have people here who represent some of the stakeholders who said they would come and share. We have people in the audience. I know you came to listen, but we also came to listen. So we're going to ask if anyone down here is a stakeholder, would like to make some comments and say where you're from. We'll take questions, we'll go back and forth, so we can try to get some answers. Some questions I'm probably not going to be able to answer. And while as great as money is, we know that doesn't solve the problem. Because I can tell you one of the first things when I went to Congress that I thought I would try to do, because President Obama was there and I had a relationship with the then HUD director, Sean. We got the $30 million grant to come back to this community right here. And then through private and public partnerships, we leveraged another $225 million. Now, I'm not tooting my own horn, but for a little black girl that grew up in the community, I was ecstatic to be able to do that under President Obama's administration. But then the question is, where are we now with that? And while money is important, money without a community, or money without a report, because when I said this, it was critical. Someone stood up and shared with me how much we had moved the needle. And half the room didn't know we had moved the needle in doing some of those things. And then when you move the needle, and some people think it's great, there'll be other community advocates saying, but black people got screwed in the process. Or the neighborhood changed. And what happened to our legacy in our old neighborhood? So we have to figure out how you marry both, because this city is growing. Here's what I heard this morning. If you take the community here, the Poindexter area, that we started out some 10 years ago, with some 7,000 to 8,000 people living in that small square footage of space, and today is 14,000. And while people say we're growing, But the 14,000 people look a lot different than the 8,000 people that were here years ago. So how do you marry that not to lose your culture and your history? But here's another thing some people might not like, and I'm gonna use this last example so you get a feel for where I am and how true I am to this cause. I know a lot about housing. My first job when I was 21 years old was with the Dayton Metropolitan Housing Authority. And then I came to Columbus, and I have a 20-year history with HUD as a consultant and working with the Housing Authority here. My first project was Sullivan Gardens. There were 571 units in Sullivan Gardens. But what they didn't tell me that it was over 1,900 people, because every unit didn't have one person in it. I don't care what the record said. When I got there, it was a lot different. And then let's fast forward to right over here at 1100 East Broad, or Jenkins Terrace as we know. And this is the thing that I use as an example. When we went in to do the relocation, most of the people didn't like what we were saying. Oh, this is our history. This is our place. How can you move all of these seniors out of Jenkins Terrace? This is the only thing they have. And I said, we are the only people that would leave your mother or your grandmother in a rat-infested, mold, damp place that's causing them to be ill. Be mad at me now, but we're gonna tear it down, but we're gonna build it back up. And I gave my word, and we moved the people out of there and paid for them to be somewhere else until we constructed the new place. And we brought 85% of those individuals who live there back in there. You go over and look at 1100 Broad Street, and anybody in this room would live in there. But that was a community. It wasn't just me. It was a community of people like this. And somewhere along the lines, we started doing the divide of us and them and we and they. And so tonight, I want to hear from everybody. And we have a lot of people with a lot of history in this room. So let's start with that. If anyone down here would like to make a comment, if not, we'll go to the audience. Okay, they're shy, I'm not. And I know you're not. And I see some people I know, so just come, you can just come on up and come to the mic. I probably can't see too far. I think there's a mic on there. I think there's a mic. And do me a favor, say your name, and if you want to say, if you represent yourself, the community, that's okay, or not. We're not going to be so structured here. Yes, sir.
Ms. Beatty, my name is Calvin Hairston. I'm one of the Hairstons of Refuge Baptist, the Hairstons and the Browns.
A little louder, we're competing with some fans up here.
The Hairstons and the Browns are probably one of the largest black families in Columbus. 10 years ago, a community came together to work on, in fact, we called it a coalition for responsible and sustainable development on Columbus's east side. As the community was changing, the community as we know it was concerned about that big issue about gentrification, moving us out. There are still a segment of this community that are afraid and are suffering. When you use the word affordable, who are you talking to? Because right now, I live on the street where condos are being placed in $250,000 to $300,000. What person in this community can even fathom to afford? And they actually lived on the street. Not only that, we are experiencing in our neighborhood high demand. It is the hottest area because it's close to downtown. In fact, I'll even go further than that to give you a statistic. Sawyer Tower was sold by Metropolitan Housing for $1 million. 3 years ago, it was sold for $27 million. Now, the people that used to stay there don't stay there anymore. it's changed. It has a new name, so people in the community know. We're experiencing drastic changes, and the community is really concerned. When you talk about affordable, people in this neighborhood no longer can afford to live in their own neighborhood. So how do we deal with that?
Thank you very much, and maybe we shouldn't be using the word affordable, maybe we should be using not affordable, because that's why we're here. And you're absolutely right. I mean, when you think about $250,000, and we have a lot of charts up here, and it backs up everything that you're saying, and that's part of the dilemma. How do we bridge that to make sure that we don't have to leave the community because we're being pushed out versus wanting to go on our own? But how do we also bring more people back into the community that work here because of the changes?
My name is Alice Porter, and I represent the Northeast Area Commission. And we have talked to every agency about senior housing. Seniors need to live in a good, safe environment. We have talked, and we have talked. And right now, we're talked out. We don't know who to talk to because we can't get any action. I live in the Northeast area near Easton. And they think because I live or we live near Easton, we don't need anything. But everybody in that community needs something. And we have so many seniors in our area. They need affordable. When I say affordable, I do mean affordable. Don't tell me that $700 is affordable when the senior citizen worked in 1942 and didn't make hardly any money, so they don't get any money. It's so simple. And another issue I want you and your constituents and whoever to address is this property tax, because some of us haven't been to school in 50 years and we're still paying for the school that we don't attend, nor do our children attend. We have grown children. So we want to be given some relief when it comes to property tax, especially for anybody over 65. I'd like you to take a look.
No, and we're recording it, and I'm not gonna have an answer every, but let me just say this on the property tax thing, because that came up this morning, and some of this we're gonna have to figure out with the people who set the property tax at the state level. What about having a fixed property tax? Because you're absolutely right. So my income stops after a while, but I'm still in that house. And then if you take a house, let's say, they say the average house is $157,000. That's what statistics say. So make it any number. So you have a house that you've lived in for 30 or 40 years. Your income declines. For most of us, your income goes down. But the neighborhood starts to change. Somebody builds one of those $200,000 houses or condo that the brother talked about across the street. Somebody builds another one on the other corner, and they move in, much younger, maybe more discretionary, but they like this community, as he said. You got entertainment, you've got the King Lincoln Center, you're close to downtown. Now we have the expressway and the wall and everything that makes it less scary to many of the folks who didn't grow up in this neighborhood. All good for our neighborhood. But to her point, on the taxes, it becomes a problem. So just like in some states, they have the home state, or the state comes up with things. Ours was based on age. I have a young person from Baltimore that works with me, and he said, we were only able to buy a home because they didn't put the age restriction on it in my area. But we talked about, what about having a fixed rate where you freeze it? Just like when you buy something and you have a fixed rate or a variable rate. What about us trying to figure out how do we get that fixed at that area based on age or based on the area that you live in that has been your community? Because we do it with everything else. You know, think about education. If you work in a rural area and you go to school and you get a whole bunch of loans, the government then says, well, if you go back and teach, then we forgive your loans. So what if you stay in your house and you've been in there X years and the age and the salary, then you get that fixed rate where it doesn't go up. Those are the kinds of policies and things we have to come up with. Because here's the real answer, it's gonna take money. And there is no money in this room, or whoever could get elected to anything, is gonna tell you in the next year, 5 years, or 10 years, people are gonna be making $30 an hour. And we have to talk about the reality. So maybe, as this morning one of the stakeholders said, we had to change some policies. We had to change some of the policies, and some people in the room might not like this, with some of these folks who are the developers, with some of the regulations that are coming out of City Hall and the State Hall. Now, we're gonna be honest, we bring the money in here at the federal level, we gotta all get in this together in the same room, and some people aren't gonna like some of the responses. Okay, we finish this side, we'll go over here, and then we'll come back here. We'll just alternate.
Good evening, my name is Jasmine. I'm here on behalf of myself. Really quickly, as a young person, as a millennial, I was fortunate enough to hear you talk about your story at one of your fundraisers, but that's not a particularly accessible thing for a lot of folks. And I think a lot of young people, we only know you as the Congresswoman, and we would like to get to know you as yourself. And so we would like for you to come out and talk to us and learn about your story, because it is very compelling. And I can't imagine what you had to go through to get to where you are, and it's appreciated, but not all of us know that story. Second thing, Columbus just did a disparity study in terms of contracting. I'm not sure if you've read it.
Yes.
Like you said, there's a lot of money coming in here, and it's not coming to us.
And the sister makes a good point, and I won't go in because we have too many in line, but I appreciate, and I tell the story more to a lot of younger folks coming up, so they're not discouraged. But you know, for most of us who have come through the many eras of discrimination and the many eras of just not being accepted, whether it's at the State House or whether it's as a person just coming up to be in the neighborhood. You know, I come from working class people, first generation going to college, got admitted to college a week before school started because I knew my parents couldn't afford any of the application forms, so I didn't bring them home. You don't know this girl. But it was a congressman named Lou Stokes and a man named C.J. McGlynn and a good black principal that showed up at my house and wanted to know why my parents hadn't responded to any of the college applications. And my mother said I didn't know anything about college applications because I hadn't taken them home. So what you oftentimes see is not how we started or where we got to. And I'm unapologetic about working 2 and 3 jobs over my life to get here because some other little black girl is going to be able to know that she came out of the projects or the inner city and there is hope for her because I didn't steal anything to get here. And you know, I've had a regular job and went and sold shoes and luggage at night and moonlighted on the side doing a whole lot of stuff so I could pay a rent note. I didn't always own a home, and I wasn't always able to live in some of the places we live now. But I can tell you, I could walk to the house that I lived in for 20-some years in this community. I can tell you that the family lived on 41 Monroe for 52 years. And the story is the same. Someone dies, a wife is left that's never worked and can't maintain or stay in the house. You move them out, the house is sold to another African American in the community, and then the taxes hits them. Then they lose it, and then some majority person comes along, pays the small amount by them, because it goes back to what's affordable for them, puts $100,000 in the house. Now the house is worth $700,000 that was sold for $90,000. Okay? So I understand that, what happens. Or you move in a community and you work hard and you buy that house for less than the $150,000 that's the average now that I lived into. And after 7 break-ins, and my car glass busted 12 times. You know, what do? You come to City Hall, you go to the county. So I've been there. I've been through all of that. And I'm not saying that because some of your stories are even, you know, different and worse than the story. We don't all end up the same. But it's important for us all to tell our stories and to be in the room. And lastly, on the disparity, and I'll start getting shorter answers, we need to speak up and be engaged in that. And this will help change stuff, because when you have disparities, we already know that. We know we're discriminated against. We know what our communities look like. But when people come in and have projects, and all of us collectively don't do a movement, then this is where we end up. You can make it healthcare, you can make it gun reform, you can make it any reform you want. And when we go down here in March, we need to see more folks that look like us out there marching for ourselves versus other folks oftentimes marching for us. Okay, this side.
Hello, my name is Marquand Stewart, and from my own anecdotal experience, I worked down at the municipal court building. I worked in the civil division for a while, and I saw a lot of evictions. It's almost 60% of the caseload. But as I began to work in the criminal division, I saw a correlation between the rates of eviction and then crime. Oftentimes you would see someone get evicted, and then there's a lot of existential problems that happen because of that. So I think if this issue really is tackled in a meaningful way, crime can be reduced. Also, my question to you, Congresswoman Beatty, is that a lot of economic metrics are saying that we could be facing another recession. And I know this is already an issue that plagues our district. What ways can we buffer ourselves, and what policies do you think you could propose to basically mitigate or stop people from losing or becoming homeless during a recession if that does happen?
Well, I think we can only point to history and see if you look at what happened in 2008 with the housing market crisis. So I just looked at a study the other day, because that's a question, I don't want to get political, but that's a question with this president that I ask every day, because it depends on what happens up here that happens with the Federal Reserve. And what happens at the Federal Reserve affects the stock market, affects the debt, affects everything that puts us in that position. So in 2005, as it relates to this district, we know 2005, I think we had, and this is just for African Americans, and it's on this chart over here, and I may need somebody to help me out. We had 44% of those African Americans that had home ownership. Then you go down to, you know what happened in 2008 with the banks and the financial crisis. We know what happened then again around 2011 and 12. When we got to 2016, 17, it had dropped so drastically that it was down to 30%. We didn't have a buffer or a plan. If something happens tomorrow, we don't have a buffer or a plan. I mean, we don't have it. So we can, what we heard this morning, we need policies. We need projects and programs. So the policies oftentimes starts at the local and the state and the county levels, what we can do with it. Here's the thing, we need to fix the issue with the property. People shouldn't be losing their homes over property taxes. People shouldn't be evicted and with the foreclosures without having some help and some assistance before it happens. We have to start talking to each other. We have to start making sure that we put things in place. Small. You asked me what I could do. Passed a piece of legislation. Now you gotta understand the politics. The people who care about this in the larger scheme tend to sit on my side of it. That is not an indictment that somebody's on the other side doesn't count, because that's not true. We had a bipartisan bill to pass the House. that would help first-time home buyers, because most of the time we can't couple together enough money to make the down payment. So we need to look at the down payment process, because the American dream, having equity, is staying in your home. We have enough homes and condos in this community. They're just not affordable. So we have to figure out the supply and demand, and we have to figure out mixed use should be different than mixed use, the real affordable and affordable. It should be like in New York and other places. Mixed use means somebody is homeless that came from the shelter is living next door to somebody who is at this level and the next level. So I think we have to have a real housing plan. I think we have to have a real community plan. And I think we have the makings of it. I just don't think we have enough people who are willing to come and put their jobs or give up something, and maybe today is the beginning of it.
Representative Beatty and those here, if I could, I'll offer a very practical alternative to make housing affordable. In recent decades, for affordable housing, it tends to go through city, county, state, federal government, or nonprofits, where they tend to build large two-story homes or apartments that are heavily subsidized, so the person who gets it doesn't pay near as much, but the actual cost tends to be very expensive. If we did what Minneapolis has done, which is basically say, you can go back to building small, tiny homes and apartments like people used to do 40 or 50 years ago, that might make a house very affordable. I live in Marion Village, a transition area south of German Village on the south side, and a little one-story ranch house that was built in the 1950s, large property subdivided, and that was legal then. Basically, that's no longer legal. You have to build, especially, for example, in Dublin, you can't build a new home unless it's extremely large with a large property, zoning poverty out of existence. So if we allow people to build small, well-built homes or apartments like we used to, that would provide so much housing. The Columbus 2050 plan that I attended and asked Gary Fogler, the director, he was very keen on building in, not out. Let's not just keep taking farmlands and forests way out in these rural counties. Let's start filling in the empty spaces in the city. And if we go small, we can do it. And that's all. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Regulations. I mean, it's the whole thing comes back to who makes those decisions at the local level. And those are the folks we need to come at, because that is a local level and a state level decision. And we need to do that.
Hello, my name is Wendy Crump, and I am a homeowner alongside working with the Bronzeville Neighborhood Association and preserving the history of our neighborhood. And my question is just to kind of touch back on the disparity issue. Bronzeville is known for being 100% built by Black Masons and the builders of the community and throughout the city. The Disparity Act came out, our disparity report came out. We know it's a problem. Like at this point, it's not even let's figure it out. It's like action needs to happen ASAP. With all the new bills that are happening in the area, none of them are given to Black contractors or minority-owned contractors. That's a problem, because now we're not putting money back into our pockets so we can even afford a house to put a down payment on in the first place. So my question to you is like, how is that going to get addressed today? Like, where does the check get cut? How do we maintain, how does the city, how does the state, how do we step in and say, okay, let's make sure we're reaching out to the National Association of Minority Contractors, the African American Chamber of Commerce. How do we work with businesses to put money in their hands for work that will be completed today?
I think we need to multiply you. I see Mr. Brown, Willis Brown here. Well, but see, here's the thing. It becomes one or two people having the voice. So here's the thing. It takes a movement, and I'll equate it to healthcare. Okay? No matter what side of the fence you were on with the affordable healthcare, we needed to sustain something, especially so poor and Black folks could have health care. People marched and made a difference to get us to stay with it and to make some changes. So what happened, we have forums like this, and people are going to talk about disparities and discrimination, and people are going to point to what we did 50 years ago or 100 years ago that built our big communities. We used to have Black grocery stores. We used to have Black retail stores. We used to have Black doctors that were general practitioners. And then as we grew and stopped, and the pipeline came along with more African Americans who wanted to stay by choice in the community and those who couldn't, we forget about those things. So how do we do it? We fill up rooms like this, whether it is me, whether it is City Hall. We don't take 5 and 6. Let me tell you, nothing's gonna happen without a movement. Nothing is going to happen without a movement. We've got what, 300-400 people here? This is probably the most people in a long time that we've had to come to something with good ideas, good statements. We know about that disparity stuff. So the question is, who paid for it? And what are we gonna do about it? And where's the results? Half the people in here couldn't go through that study, didn't know how to get access to it, don't have it. So when we get something, I would say this is something I'm interested in. You know, my husband got raked over the coals and went after City Hall and everything, and they said the work wasn't done right, and he was too biased because he was black. And he started talking about the disparities, and that was 13 years ago. The same study that City Hall wouldn't pay for, so this is real personal for me, that wouldn't pay for but used the results of it, is quoted in the study that they just did now, and nothing happened for 30 years. And now we pay for a study after 30 years of doing nothing, and here's how it repeats itself. Part of the reason I'm doing this tonight, you know, we look at 1968 with the fair housing. Some of the people in this community were there then. And here we are 50 years later talking about the same thing. I don't want it to be another 50 years. We have to get angry. You have to hold me accountable like somebody, you know, called and said, you're personally responsible. I'll take that. Even though I know I'm not personally responsible. But then maybe we need to say, we need the mayor. We need the president of city council. We need the county commissioners. We need everybody in the room today. Not saying, well, they couldn't show up. Everybody was invited. So let's make that real clear. Everybody was invited. And it didn't cost a dime to get in. I'm just saying.
Hi, my name is Arthur Hill. I'm in a mortgage business, so I see FHA loans, VA loans, I see services transfer loans. I have no idea where even to start. I can go on and on about the stories that I see. I talk to customers from New York to California, and I see some heartbreaking stories. But what I did want to add to you don't need to be 65 to get tax relief. I mean, I have people that buy a home next to me that a developer bought, and they're getting tax relief, and I'm still paying taxes, and I've been in my community for 15 years. So here's an idea. Why don't we just award people who've been in the community for 10 years or more with some type of tax break, no matter what their age is as well. And another way, maybe the community, to get some type of funding as well. We got Lyft, we got Uber, they drive through the community all the time. You might want to tax them a little bit to help pay for some of the, you know, funds that we need to support some of the tax relief. But that's all I wanted to add. You pretty much covered a lot of the other things though as well. But it's just, let's just take care of the people that's been in the community for long periods of time, help them stay in the community, which is really important.
Now, let me say thank you, and let me just say this, to what this brother just said. I don't know a lot about, but everybody was asking me about this, so I pulled up what you can get, because somebody told me that we didn't have residential tax incentive programs for single homes. Now, you may need to help me out with this. So I went to the city of Columbus, and so I found out that we do have what the brother said. We have it for single units, and we have it for multifamily units. I thought it was just for big developers and people coming in. But here's the answer to your question and the caveat to it. So let's say you have a home, make it easy, man, $50,000. The problem for filling this out and getting it, you have to do the improvement. We talked about this on the tour. You need some new steps, you need a roof, you need painting, you need some things, but it's back to what the brother said, the first question, what's affordable? You know, I'm thinking, well, we talk about $2,500, maybe I can get that together, but then you find out you're talking about $75,000. So the problem with this is, it does just what you're saying. If you get this approved and the value to the, let's make it 100,000 so I can do easy math. So it's 100,000 to renovate it. So now you have a house that's worth 150,000. But where are you gonna get the 100,000? Or the 75,000? So you have to get the 100,000 to get them to give you the fixed tax rate on the 50,000 versus the 150. So now it comes back to what I said earlier. We need to pull some of these monies and figure out some type of revitalization program that's like a tax incentive. If you've lived in your house, pick a number, 25 years, you know, regardless of age, in this, because we've divided the CRA quadrants up, and we know where they are. But there is no rule to help those who have paid taxes, made an investment in that community. And maybe those are things we can do. Yes, ma'am.
Congresswoman Beatty, thank you for holding this meeting. Very important issues, and I appreciate you listening. There's two things that I'd like to bring to your attention. You might already be working on these, and if so, I'd just like to hear what you're doing, or maybe you have some thoughts. I used to live in this neighborhood. Actually, I lived
have changed over the years. There was a time where you had to not deal with the client or consumer in the property. They would report it and HUD would take care of it for you. Then it went to the private pay where there's the folks like you who own it. Here's the major problem. I'm a big proponent of Section 8. I relocated people and saw their faces to come out of a public housing and to go in that 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom home. I watched them paint fences and feel good about it. There's 26,000 people on a wait list. So we're back to the supply and demand. When my team said that to me, I told them that they were wrong. I said, no, you just said 26,000. That cannot be true. I picked up the phone to call and verify it, and it is true. So one of the things, it doesn't matter what our differences are, it's kind of what Senator Craig was saying, we gotta work together. So I have to suck it up and go to Secretary Carson. And now if you've seen any of my videos, you know what I feel about that. But here's the thing. We have to figure out how to convince him who holds that power. We can get mad all we want at CMHA in this community, but if they don't give us the vouchers and release it to give to the folks, now it might be supply and demand. I don't know how many people we have like you out there, but I know we shouldn't have 26,000 people. I mean, I don't even know how to answer that. Should you go in? I don't even tell people to go and try to get a voucher anymore. Because they're just gonna come back and go off on me that they get there and somebody say, you now 28,000th person to get it. So I think we have to start at the top. It goes back to what this morning that we heard. Programs, projects, and policy. We need to change the policy on this program so we can have more Section 8 projects.
Do you think there's enough money that Congress has put in the budget for the Section 8 program?
Let me just tell you, and I don't want to sound, this is fact, so it's not political. I go into the Housing Committee, and Secretary Carson, on his own, took out $19 million in some of the housing budget to self-cut, to look good, when we have people out here that needs the money. So the only thing I can think of is we need to tell our stories. He has been invited here before. He came for the foster care, and he came and went to a lot of the houses. So the only thing I can tell you is I'm gonna call, we're gonna write all this up, and he is the secretary, and he has to be held accountable. And so we're gonna invite him and have people come back. And I want you to be strong with what we're saying, because if we have a movement, they will move. So we need to have a bigger place in a movement and pick 3 topics: the affordability, the changing the property tax, Section 8, and you determine whatever else, and we have to make that happen.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, my name is Delisha Kendall. I am representing students, I guess, college students in Columbus. I grew up on the west side of Columbus, and when I went to college, I struggled really hard with finding housing. I lived on campus for the first year, and then that increased my tuition by $10,000, something I definitely could not afford, and my loans and scholarships could not help me with either. My parents don't have any way of helping me with college, and many of my peers, because I went to West High School, many of my peers went to college like me the first year, and then had to drop out the following year because of financial issues. They couldn't afford to go to school. They had to choose between living under a roof or eating or even like getting an education. And my main issue is how are students supposed to find affordable living when there are luxury apartments popping up around the campuses? There are $1,000 one-bedroom apartments all around. I've been to the Capitol, Columbus State, and CCAD, and I can't find. It's hard for me. I try to help my peers. I'm starting a program at my college to help find affordable housing because it's super hard. It's extremely hard, and like, how are we supposed to keep up with the luxury apartments being built right around our colleges when most people can't afford transportation either, and they need to walk to school?
Thank you, and let me just say that we don't have an answer to that because that same question came up this morning, and again it became the divide that yes, we know we have college students, whether it's the West Side or Columbus State or the Ohio State here, who are in college, matriculating, come back, don't have help, but we also have people living on the streets. So again, it is the whole level. So when we had college students that came to my office in Washington and said they were going to be homeless because the dorms closed and they had to come home for the summer and they didn't have housing, a little different than your story. So I went to HUD to ask for $6 million for this area and this district. And my biggest fight was the divide is cutting into the pie for the homeless on the street. So things get prioritized. People didn't want to give the $6.1 million to the younger folks because we had so many elderly folks and seniors. And what HUD did, and we talked about that earlier today, they didn't give us an additional money for you. What they said is the money comes back to the community. Now the community can divide it up all they want. The problem becomes none of the directors or the areas have enough money to serve the populations that they're serving. So we continue with business as usual because it's too difficult, people would say. So the thing we need to do is have new categories of funding without taking away from the existing funding.
And the biggest unfortunate thing about that, and I completely understand that because there are many homeless people. I grew up on the west side, like, housing isn't affordable for anybody, but students do take up at least 24% based on the census on your website of your district, and students aren't speaking up. I'm probably one of the very few that's like talked to you from this district, and
not true. So let me tell you just the opposite. That's the good thing about your colleagues. You all probably have more of a movement right now than many of the people here. Just this weekend, I was with 400 students, with Students in Demand, fighting for gun reform. The week before that, students pulled their money together and came on this same issue of tuition costs and the lack of housing. So we need to join it together. This speaks to the whole thing I started with. Don't make me pick a veteran, a senior, or homeless. We have to be in this together, and then we're stronger. So if the seniors and the students get together, and the people with the lack of affordability in the middle get together, we have a better army than trying to pick and choose. So thank you, and we hear you, and we're not putting it on the back burner. So thank you.
I represent a statewide organization, the Ohio Grandparent Kinship Coalition, which is an advocacy group for kinship caregivers. And I want to thank you and Senator Craig for all his support for our organization and the families that we are speaking for. I want to piggyback on the senior housing issues with the opioid crisis. Historically, we've always had grandparents taking in their grandchildren when the parents weren't able to. That's increasing. With the opioid crisis, it's 4 and 5-fold. And what we're running into and the stories we hear is those families or those people that are living in senior housing, once they take in that grandchild, that nephew, niece, then they lose their eligibility for that particular senior housing that they're living in. And so we're looking at ways to develop multi-generational housing. With all the developments going on, there should be a percentage of these developments made to address the multi-generational population. There's a housing development up in Cleveland. It's called GRIOT, it's G-R-I-O-T. And they've done a wonderful job of doing a multi-generational housing development through CMHA and their HUD and a development corporation. And that may be something that our local leaders want to look into.
Thank you. It's a good point.
Good evening, Ms. Beatty and everyone in the audience tonight. I just want to say that back in 1985, I suffered a financial hardship. I worked for the state of Ohio in the Department of Corrections. After I got hurt on my job, they fired me. I did receive workman's comp for 4 years. Then they cut me off. After that, I became homeless with a 3-year-old daughter, a single mother. And I was homeless for over a year. We slept in cars, situations that I wouldn't want on anybody to live. But after 29 years of that, I bounced back. I'm back on my feet. But I want to know, I need to straighten out my credit. I have bad credit. I want to become a homeowner. Right now, I am on Section 8. And if I'm correct, they said that if you're on Section 8, you can become a first-time home buyer and make payments like you pay your rent as a mortgage payment. But I can't do that if my credit is bad. One question I have is filing for bankruptcy or Chapter 13 or Chapter 7 an option for me, and what is the difference of those three? Also, I have evictions. How would I get those evictions off of my record in order to become a first-time home buyer? Also, does anyone know of anyone that is willing to rent a single 1-floor plan, 2-bedroom house on a Section 8 certificate? That's what I'm looking for now, because moving on and moving forward, 10 years from now, I will be 80, and I cannot go up and down steps like I used to because of a hip replacement. So I'm trying to straighten out my credit so I can eventually become a homeowner. And you know, we have a fear of becoming a homeowner because of the taxes, other expenses that come with that, and other things that really would overwhelm a senior citizen. So.
Okay, we have somebody down here. Okay. Cheryl will take it. Okay.
Housing Authority, and I want you to get in contact. Okay, I will. Okay. Thank you so much.
And the only thing I told her is I worked with the Housing Authority, and I've done it to the other one who stood up. We're giving them my business card to say that we'll be in touch and see exactly what we can do.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also, I would like to know.
Here, you got Yolanda, you got another person coming down here.
Thank you.
Ms. Porter has been very helpful to us on those issues. Thank you, Yolanda. We're gonna have to go over here and come back, but I want you to see Cheryl and Yolanda. Use that time wisely while they are here.
Hi, I'm Gloria Anderson. Gloria Zebs Anderson. I live in the Argyle Park district of the North Central area here in Columbus, off of Joyce Avenue. Our housing situation in North Central, 10 years ago we were at 64% home ownership, but now it's gone down. My concern is the lack of support for generational wealth, because many of my neighbors have tried over and over and over again to put in a bid for some houses that were left vacant, so that their children and their grandchildren can move back into the neighborhood rather than living in bed bug infested housing. You know, so they can move back and still live in that neighborhood, so they can make sure that their children have a home that in the next generation they will own. Sure, we have wills, but there's also transfer on death affidavits that can be done much cheaper. But the problem we have is when they put in the bid for the vacant houses for the city of Columbus, I hate to say it, you know, their land bank discriminates against anybody who has less than $20,000 of savings to purchase a home that's only worth $8,000. Now the house doesn't need all of those special repairs. They just rack them up so that only the limited partnerships and all like that, LLCs, can buy them, that are from Arizona, from California, from China. And then they come in, they let the house either sit until the last minute, and then they fix them up, sell them or rent them out. And if they're rentals, we cannot get in touch with them as a neighborhood to keep the house up or to get rid of somebody that's undesirable in the houses. My problem is with the Columbus City Land Bank and their policies, because we have generational wealth desires. And so my neighbors have tried to buy homes for their children, and they cannot do that.
Thank you. We have some,
they have good credit.
We have some city and county folks down here. Somebody want to? Thank you.
Now, let me let you know that I did take this to Zach Klein, and they checked it out. The city attorney, they checked it out. They said that $20,000 was not legal. Not legal. But in my neighborhood now, the only properties left in the land bank are vacant lands.
Okay, so good evening everyone. To Congresswoman Beatty, thank you for hosting this important conversation. My name is Councilwoman Shayla Favor, and I am the chair of the Housing Committee for Columbus City Council. To answer your question in part, we would need to, so we have Curtis, who represents the county with the land bank. Our representative for the city's portion of the land bank is not present today, but as it relates to any property that is vacant and is currently in the city's possession or the county's possession, there is some specific parameters around how long those properties can sit vacant if they are transferred to an individual owner. And so whoever is purchasing that property from the land bank, or if it's transferred to an individual with that land bank, if they fail to bring that property up to code, if they fail to actually rehab that property, then the city and the county have a process in order to get that property back into our possession. And so I will be more than happy to give you my card so that you and I can talk about whatever properties
If that's not answering, that's not answering the question. That is not answering the question. The question is, why do they have a $20,000 in the savings requirement before you can bid on this property? Or you can bid, but you won't get accepted on these properties. Why don't we have something that allows for family wealth to buy properties in your neighborhood?
Good afternoon. My name is Curtis Williams. I'm president and CEO of COSIC, which is the Franklin County Land Bank. And I work very closely with the city land bank. We've done a lot of stuff over the last few years that really tries to clean up the communities and throughout Central Ohio, Franklin County, and the city of Columbus. I work very closely with these guys, and the policy that you're mentioning, ma'am, I'm not familiar with at all. I do know clearly that they have some policies. And the policies are in place. Keep in mind that a lot of properties are blighted and have been for a number of years. And the policies are in place so that those properties don't become blighted anymore, that the people that get a hold of those properties have the financial wherewithal and also the ability to turn those properties around. The last thing that we do want is those properties to go back to the state that they've been on. And certainly I understand what you're saying, but I really cannot speak directly to that particular policy.
So let me take a stab. If our legal counsel is saying it's illegal, then what we need to do is go back and look at it, because you can't have property that's valued at $8,000 and you're requiring me to have $20,000. That makes no sense. And that keeps us from getting things, and I think and then we're gonna move on. But this is alarming to me, because when we talk about disparities, and we talk about when it's in our communities, we should not have our city attorney saying it's illegal, and it does make sense to me that it's illegal. So if in fact it is in there, and I've known you 30 years, so I can say if you tell me you've seen it in there, it's in there. Okay? So I don't have a problem with that. We need to figure out if this is another disparity, and I appreciate the councilwoman. What you didn't hear her say is she will go back and pull it and find out, and then we will talk about it and look at taking that out, and especially for properties that aren't even 50% of that value.
But what I'm saying is what they're asking, the lowest bid, what they're asking is just enough to take care of back taxes. The property really is valued at more. And so when the neighbors know what's wrong with that property, and they have the wherewithal, they have the means, they have good credit to be able to repair those houses and meet those standards within the allotted time. It's just they're not given a chance as neighbors to be the first ones to be able to bid on them.
So let's see if we can get creative with that. Maybe, now here's a policy change. Maybe we ought to say if it's in our community, we ought to be able to have first bidding rights on something in our community. You know, we gotta figure out how to stay within the process and go around. So if there's a process, maybe what we should be asking, since we have the money and we're in there, that we want the first right to have the bids on. Now, I mean, that might be something we should look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Dorita Reed. I am a homeowner, and I also have a nonprofit for the homeless ministries, for homeless. I have 4 transitional trailers that I use for those that are working homeless families that have been sleeping in cars or hotels. But the challenge that I face today for them to transition out of the trailers is they have an eviction. Evictions in Columbus, Ohio stays on you for life. So a low landlord will rent to you if you have an eviction. They have another program where you can go through and get a certificate, but still, if you get a certificate and say that you are responsible, then the challenge is the location in which they're housed or the amount of the rent that they would have. So the ladies that I have there in the transitional program, they're stuck. And I want them to move on. They are required to get their GED if they don't have a GED. They are required to do the financial counseling. They are required to make their monthly payments on time. That's the design that we have for our program. But we want our program to be expanded, but with an eviction on them for life, they can't go anywhere. Last year in Columbus, I think they had 18,000 evictions. 19,000. Wow. And last year in November, we do a homeless, we bring in the homeless in our community, in our church, to have showers and haircuts. Our goal was 150. We had 244. We had families of 12, a mother and a father and 10 children. It was overwhelming just to see. And we talk about affordable housing, they can't even begin to even get there. You know, and I'm a homeowner, and I face my own personal challenge but I can't imagine being homeless and not having no hope.
Thank you. Thank you for your story. We'll go over here.
Hi, Congresswoman. I've seen you at many events. I am Maria Perales Lang. I work for Bell Harbor Management of Ohio, which I'm the director. I run apartment communities. So I have two things. The evictions, okay? As a landlord, we don't like to evict anybody. It costs money. And it is not exactly something that we want to do as a community. I think that the way the eviction process is set up actually hurts people in that for people to get help, they have to wait till a three-day notice is given. A lot of organizations and a lot of companies such as ours, which are smaller, we're private business, and we can't afford to let someone stay for long, long periods of time because we're completely self-sufficient, and that means that the income of the residents is how that I get paid. So we work with a lot of different programs. So we help a lot of people that are in transition from incarceration, from different things. And just working, have been doing this for 30 years and knowing that the eviction process is a little bit difficult. As a landlord, we're always the bad guys. And let me tell you, for me to evict somebody, I have done everything I can to help you. Unless you're a person causing me drama, then you gotta go. But other than that, we work really hard to keep our people because people get in a bad situation and before you know it, it gets really turned around. And I think if the landlords could be asked to the table, because there's a very negativity that the city in Columbus shows will be how not to get evicted. Well, you know what I mean? It's like already a negative type of thing. And so as a landlord, I just wanted to see, you know, I have been to a lot of different seminars and whatever, and all I keep hearing the same thing, which is, well, this is what you do, but it's after the fact. If they could start with someone is having an issue, start helping, then by the time that it's been a month, the landlord gets paid, there's no reason for an eviction. As a landlord, I could take away a late charge. There's a lot of things I can do. You know, like renting to people that have issues, we can take away the deposit. We can lower the deposit. We can, but the stigma also, that was the other thing, which is Section 8. Section 8 has such a bad stigma that as a landlord, I have to defend it. And it really upsets me because people in transition are usually the best kind of residents because they're at the bottom and they understand they're going to lose everything. So they tend to pay their rent on time. They tend to behave because they get to a point where they're now in the second phase of their life. But the stigma of Section 8, it's like, we don't want to say we're Section 8. We have some properties that are not. And so those are the ones that are, oh, these are great. But the ones with Section 8, and yet some of my Section 8 people are people that are very good residents, people that are giving back to the community. So I just wanted to see if you could get a committee, but put private landlords, not the developers, not the big, you know, people. I didn't buy your billboard, but I actually house a lot of people that nobody else will. Sure. And to be proud to say that and not have be looked at as, oh, we're you know, we got the minorities, we got the this and the that. And I just said, if you all just came to the table, had us come to the table when you're making your decisions, and I have sent emails to people, that person in charge of the housing and all that, and I'm just not, I guess, not writing the big checks for that. I'm more like letting people move in. So.
Well, let me just say, because I know you, thank you. And I know of your work, and I think Councilwoman might have something to add to help you.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for what you're doing to rental our individuals who have faced evictions or have been in difficult situations.
I think we all know people. So, I mean, we all have been there. So.
Yeah, but everybody's not willing to rent. And so what I'll be rolling out in the fall is a program that is designated towards eviction mitigation. You're absolutely correct. 19,000 evictions are filed in Franklin County every single year. And I know that I will not be able to build a new housing project that will be able to solve the affordable housing crisis, but what I can do is help people stay in their homes right now. So I'm putting real dollars towards helping people out. They will have legal representation through legal aid. So dollars will be going to legal aid. Dollars will also be going to impact that will help people stay in their homes. That means Proactively, correct, not already evicted, proactively before they actually are removed from the home. And then we're also talking legislation, because the reality is that source of income prejudice is absolutely real. And so once people hear that you have funding from Section 8 and vouchers and things of that nature, they will refuse to rent to you. And so what I want to propose, and what I'm going to need everyone to step up and come to our hearings as City Council, is that we know that this is a problem in our community and we stand against it. What often happens is that when we propose things like this that go abstract to what a landlord may want to see, we see folks from the realtor realtor agencies come and say, hey, this runs abstract to what fits our pockets, right? And so there's not enough people like you and I that are standing up and saying, this is a problem in our community and this is what we need.
It is good business, because at the end of the day, where the money comes, if people are working hard, it's good business. You know,
Yes.
if we rent to people and they're gonna pay and they're going to take care of the place, it's what it's about, it's a community.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, my name is Les Can, and I'm an aspiring small-scale developer. And I'm was wondering on your $30,000 grant that we got, how and what is leveraging that into $200 million? And also, how do I access that money? As a small-scale developer, say I had, I needed $100,000, I have 70. How do I leverage my $70,000 in partnership with the grant people and the money to fulfill my plans for small-scale development?
It didn't quite work that way. The 30 million came in so you could get public and private, and I think it was the city, it was Columbus Metropolitan Housing, it was The Ohio State University, and I know I might need Trudy to help me with that. So private partnerships came together so they could leverage the dollars to fund making changes in the neighborhood. Now, with that said, here's one of the things that gets to what somebody said earlier. That's probably not a good project to relate to what you're asking for, but here's what we need to be leveraging with folks like you. So when we have developers coming into this community to build, we need to have the stories to say back to them, why don't we have Mr. So-and-so on this project? And let me tell you why I know it can be done if people rise up. The Ohio State University, when Gordon Gee was here, they did a $1 billion medical center. There were no black folks. Not even our biggest contractors could get bonded because it was $1 million. And so the majority company came in because they could get bonded and wanted to use, they didn't need folks like you because they had the whole project. But thank goodness there were enough people of color who came together, movement, marched and went to the president's office, went to his house in Bexley, and he opened the door and met with them. And we got creative, like the same thing we were saying to Gloria, first and right. So they made that majority company take the minority, not as a subcontractor where they can give them the 3% or the 5% that we get so happy about. And this minority contractor made more money than he had probably made in his entire life on that project, and then they paid his employees. So we just need to have a better database to know one another. And it's like we say, see something, say something. When these folks are coming into our community, and whether it's the city, the federal, or the county letting contracts, and I know many of you are doing it. I know we're beating a dead horse, but we have to do it a little more until it works. And that's the best answer I can give you, that we have to have people to come forward to say, how do I put my money in? Most of the time we don't have the money to put in to leverage something, because we don't commingle our monies like other minority groups do. I mean, I don't care if it's $500 or $1,000, we don't have access or trust or collaborations, or we got bad stories that we don't do that.
And that's my question. It's been leveraged up to $200 million. Well, who's using that $200 million that you use the grant money for our
agencies?
It formed a pact with community folks that went into this community.
That's like home board and Habitat for Humanity and homeless shelter boards and those kind of things. That's the question.
Are you asking me, did they get part of the money?
Yeah, that's what
We had home
I'm
board Habitat here, and their answer is no, they did not get part of those money. I don't know if somebody from the PAC, but truly you want to take a stand for, but the answer is no.
Okay.
The answer is no. Okay?
Thank you.
Over here.
How you doing? How you doing? My name is Jerry Valentine. I'm a founder of Renter Mentor, which is a startup that helps people connect to affordable housing. When it's all built, our solution will provide the accountability, the clarity, and the efficiency that the affordable housing market is lacking. With that being said, I got a twofold question. One, what do you think, or how do you think leveraging tech will impact the affordable housing industry? And two, what can we do to incentivize these landlords that are doing good and open their doors, taking these risks, for Section 8 voucher holders or just anyone who needs an affordable, rent? Because at the end of the day, I keep hearing the developers keep getting tax incentives and all these free land. What are we doing to the private landlords to open their doors for, those Section 8 voucher holders or even someone like me who just wants an affordable rent?
I'm probably not the best person to answer this. This came up this morning. I think housing should be in the forefront. If I had my way to control it, when we talk about innovation, we would not talk about tech and innovation absent of housing. So one of the things as a young brother who clearly understands this, we need to have your voice more, because I don't think, again, it should be an either or. It's like to the young student. I'm not going to pick between a veteran, a homeless person, and a child. And I don't think if in this community, when you look at the statistics, you can do all the tech you want. If people are on the street and homeless, and you can't, it's something about putting a roof over somebody's head and giving them that assurance that they can go home. They get up and go to work. They get up and feel better because they know at 5 o'clock or 9 o'clock or midnight, they're going to put a key in something. And so I think we have to marry the two. Now, I might be in the minority with that. I know tech is the new wave and technology and STEM and all that, but I think you always have to do a little old school and a little new school. So we need people to still start talking about the basics. Don't get me started. It's just like when we were coming up, you had to know how to read and to do math. Now they give a 3-year-old or 5-year-old a cell phone, and they can give you an answer that they don't have any idea of how they got to. And so I am with you. I'd be willing to listen to you and me and figure out taking your energy and wrap it around. Michelle.
So Michelle Harris, Community Shelter Board. Just on a low-tech thing, one of the things we're doing is we're piloting this risk mitigation fund. So we're piloting with 12 landlords, and we said, look, if you're willing to give our people a chance, we know, they've got evictions and some credit problems and lots of other challenges and barriers. And so if they're willing to not charge us double and triple security deposits, if they're willing to, lower barriers and let someone move in, if something happens where the tenant leaves and doesn't pay the rent or the place gets torn up, whatever, if something happens, we will pay up to $2,000 to make that landlord whole again. And here's what's interesting about that is we find, to your point, that people access the fund very rarely because that's not what we see happening. And so we're just piloting it right now with 12 landlords. We want to expand it and get a lot bigger because we want everybody to win. And I hear the landlords in the audience saying, hey, we're not the bad guys, we're trying to be business folks, and that is right. So we're trying to find ways that everybody wins. The people who need a second chance, they win, and the people who are trying to have a business and be a landlord, they get to win too because they need to be paid and not have their property torn up. So that's a low-tech thing that we're doing to just, try to encourage landlords to give folks a chance that just need a little extra help.
Thank you both.
Good evening. Hi, Lisa Boykin from the Near East Area Commission. I had the pleasure of serving on the auditors
tax work group committee. And there were some things that I was able to bring up that they seem to be struggling with. One is with the clusters in neighborhoods with houses that are maybe a block north and south of one street, but the blocks north and south are $400,000 plus. And to tax the $100,000 people at the same rate that you do the $400,000 properties really is not fair. They are going to look at clusters of neighborhoods. They have said that the neighborhoods they defined before have been too large because they have not considered that. But my next question is to Senator Craig. The state is still guilty of being unconstitutional in terms of how it funds schools. Schools in Columbus are under-resourced, but yet the property taxes are still assessed to fund the schools. So I would like to know, and some people I'm working with would like to know, who do we need to talk to at the state in order to begin to change that, to get them to fund schools the way they should and stop defying the constitutional decision that was made?
Well, we're going back to giraffe, and I can tell you the answer to that, but Senator, I mean, that was me when I was in the state house. That we're going back, and giraffe probably is now 60 years old. And that's how long we've been fighting the whole property tax and the whole funding system. And I'll let the senator speak to it, but let me just tell you, we were doing it backwards. Because you need to know what the needs are before you can just take an arbitrary figure. For too long in the state house, they developed the amount of money per pupil, and it wasn't based on the needs. Because if we go into some of our public schools here, that's another whole forum and another whole meeting, because we know what's happening to our children in some of those public schools. And when you look at the per pupil costs that we were voting on in the state house, then you go to the suburban schools, it's no different than the taxes and what we're talking about in the houses. And let me say this last thing, we toured that neighborhood today on our bus tour. I took a 2-hour tour and went from the furthest west side, east side, south side in the district, and we had a lady on the bus that when we got to her house, we talk about affordable, I'm like, wow, this is brick, it's beautiful, and I mean, it was massive. And she said, but the problem is, I don't know how old, she was an elderly lady, and she was single by herself, she couldn't afford the taxes, house paid for. I don't know if you want to add quickly to that.
Well, let me try to, I know that the timing is getting away from us, but that Garoff decision is real. It's a question that we've been struggling with. There was two representatives, one on both sides of the aisle, looking at that education issue, because it's inextricably linked, that tax issue, to quality education for our children. And I'm sorry, the one name is Patterson, Representative Patterson, the other name escapes me. But for 6 or 7 months in this last General Assembly, there was a lot of debate, a lot of public input regarding that issue, and it still comes right down to making a clear and precise decision around how we educate our children, the quality of education, equity in education. And so, Ms. Boykin, happy to talk with you further about that issue. But that's where we are. That Garoff decision is still there. The Supreme Court has said that it's unconstitutional, and we've got to make sure that we're addressing it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Vernon Malone. I'm from the Southfield area. Senator Beatty, Councilman Craig, I've been trying to get an appointment to see you. I don't know about anybody, but I have heard some good things, but it's nothing that I can use. But I thank God that I'm here today. I was able to be here. And the reason why I'm here to claim a blessing. I'm looking for some help. I've been living in a house for 10 years, and all of a sudden, my house that I'm, not my house, the house I live in is being sold. My deadline to be out of the house is the end of next month. Now, God been good to me and blessed me with a lot of things. First of all, I was on crack. I was crack addict. I didn't have nothing. Now, God blessed me tremendously. I can't remember the last time I smoked crack, but what I have now, and I wouldn't have it if it wasn't for the grace of God. Now, I'm here trying to get a blessing. I need some help to get a house, I'm home. I'm not looking for a landlord. I'm not looking to rent. I'm 65 years old. What do I look like? Well, I might not look 65. I thank God for that. But if I live to see the age of 68, what do a man or a woman 68 years old look like they gotta pack up and move? I have a lot of things to move. By the grace of God, I was blessed with it all. I have a truck, a car, a trailer. God blessed me with equipment to do lawn care service. I'm not afraid of work because I love getting paid. I thank God for that. The Bible tells me a man don't work, he don't eat. There was another pastor. He gave me this scripture, 2 Corinthians 1:20. For all promises of God is in him, yes, and amen. And to add on to it, unto the glory of God by us. Now, who is us? Everyone in here, including myself. I'm looking for some help, and I'm claiming it. I'm not afraid to say I need help. I didn't get here on my own. It's nothing I've done spectacular to achieve what God blessed me with. I can't live without the blessings of God, and I need it. I'm not trying to go back to crack. I'm not trying to lose what God blessed me with. The devil, he's a liar. He had me confused, and I lost everything to my name before. I'm not trying to go backwards. I need help.
First, let me just say, let's applaud him, because I think that took a lot.
I'm claiming it. I need help.
So, I don't know if we go to CMHA, if we go
CMHA, they got so much a long waiting list. I don't have that kind of time. Notice I said my deadline is the end of next month. If I'm not out of the house, everything God blessed me with, and me gonna be on the curb. My truck, car, and trailer would be towed to the impound. I'm not trying to lose nothing. I'm trying to gain. I want my own house. I don't want to go through this again.
Sure.
Next year, a landlord might come up to me and say, you gotta move because the house, I'm gonna sell it. I need help now.
So we just have impact. Bo Chilton will at least try to provide some assistance. And that's what tonight is about.
I'm not going.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. We're gonna go over here.
Thank you.
And then we're gonna take the last two so we can wrap up on time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you again for coming. You got a tough job. You're getting it tonight. I'd like to echo the young lady's point. She mentioned on the other side of the room, foreign investment and real estate in the United States is a challenge. The veteran in me recognizes that's a national security issue that we definitely need to address on a national level. The second is, I want to frame this, I want to add a frame to this conversation. It's a broader regional economic challenge, right? The mayor talks a lot about mixed income communities, and I think that's really important as we talk about Section 8 housing. One of the first things to happen when large quantities of Section 8 housing get condensed is massive disinvestment in that area. And we've seen it all around us. I want to make sure that we don't cluster these Section 8 housings, because as soon as they do, Kroger leaves. And a lot of other organizations, we lose food insecurity, we gain food insecurity, right? So, a couple of questions to brainstorm for your scribes is, one, how might we better link the value of a home, the dollar value, to what people can actually afford? And how might we increase the inclusivity in some of our wealthier suburban neighbors in this region to make sure that people can live in Central Ohio as a whole?
Thank you for that, and certainly that's not something I'm gonna have an answer to here, but I'm trying to pass out what you said because some of it seems a little mixed. We don't want Section 8 in our neighborhoods, but how do we go to the exclusive neighborhoods and put us there? I think, and I'm just speaking for me, I think when we say mixed use, it has to mean just that. At some point, nobody wants us in their neighborhoods, including us. So, I mean, we gotta be real, I mean, here's the real. People will say, I don't want a renter in my neighborhood because the property goes down. Then you come to me as a congressperson and say, it's not affordable for us to live here, so maybe we have an option that you can rent till you can save enough money. But then our own people don't want the renters, we don't want the Section 8. So at some point we have to come to grips. Because then when people hear that, be that the city, now I'm gonna plug the city and the county folks in a good note, so they hear you. So then you go over and take down the street and they make it mixed use to make it quote unquote nice. Then we put people who are nurses, we put the students at Columbus State, we put minority and majority folks together, then we say they're taking over our neighborhoods. But once we have to pay whatever is affordable, because many can, we struggle, we get a nice place across the street. I know when we built the houses over here, what that used to look like. That was 98% black folks over there in those beautiful homes that still look nice today. Then we didn't want what was over there where Shiloh Church was, and rightly so. So then we tried to remove and get that away because we want our neighborhoods to be all home ownership, but everybody can't afford it. And at some point, all communities are going to brace one another and take a little bit, and that's what they do in other cities. People quoted Minneapolis, you talk about what's happening in Indiana. So what happens, they have some of Michelle's folks that somebody takes a chance on, and they screen and they work with them, and when you walk through, you don't know the difference. But every community is like that. I represent the richest and the poorest. I remember when New Albany was building $700,000 and $1 million houses, and God forbid somebody wanted to build a $500,000 house and they sued them because they said that was slum and blight. And so it goes from the highest level to the lowest level. So I guess my answer back to you is I hear you and I understand it, but it works on both ends. It works on both ends that we have to start embracing us, and we have to have more programs. You know, we just had a brother tell us he was a crack addict, but he can't remember the last time he did crack, and he got a car and a truck, and he has a roof over his head. I want that brother living in my community. That was his story. You know, he didn't come in here and say, I came off the street and I'm gonna get ready to go do some crack right now. You know, but some people might be like, no, I thought that was one of the best things I could have heard tonight. And another brother got up and gave him a card. That's the beginning of making a difference.
Hi, I'm Selena Williams, and I'm one of the success stories here in this area, because I lived here. Home from home, but I still lived here in this area here. My question is the married people, in order to get help, they have to get a divorce in order for them to get help. And my husband and I lost our home because we refused to get a divorce. And it's like, for seniors these days, it's like either you don't have anything, you sell everything in order to get anything. So is there any program that married people can go to, and God rest my husband because he just passed, can go to that doesn't have to get a divorce in order to live together in their homes where they don't have to lose it?
I'm struggling because I guess it depends on what the situation we're talking about.
The thing is like this, okay? Being together being married, you're making too much money to get help to keep your house going, to restore your home, okay? But they'll tell you, if you get a divorce.
Because the two-family income
Correct.
exceeds the, whatever the poverty line or
Correct.
whatever the income has to be
Correct.
for that.
Is there something other than getting a divorce?
There absolutely has to be.
So we need to work on that because people have been married 50, 60 years, have to get a divorce in order to just get help, have to sell their homes. And to get a place, because I just looked into a 55 and over place, and I'm over 60, but I looked into a 55 and over because my husband is passed. And it is expensive out there. For just the studio was over $900. A studio. For a one bedroom, it was over $1,400. So I wanted to come back to the area, but it's too expensive now because of all the condos that are being built. I checked downtown to get a place for a one bedroom was over $2,000.
I was gonna say, downtown is definitely not affordable.
Correct. So, you know, but I'm here for the married people that's been married for so long.
So let me ask you this, maybe you can get a card from Bruce down here with Homeport, and maybe there can be some resources to tell you different areas, and I know National Church Residences, they're not here, but I know they have worked. I didn't realize you were 55 or older. So we will work with you through that to get you some resource information. Okay, we're gonna go here to this sister and then over there to our last person.
Hello, my name is Janae Perkins and I live in the Dryden Park area, and I'm also a homeowner. But my question, I had many, but it's too late. So Rickenbacker has affordable housing in our area, but they say that you can be a homeowner after you live in this house, but you have to live in the house 15 years and then you have the option to buy it. But not 1 cent of your rent went towards owning the home. And so when you go to the commissioner meetings and things like that, you know, the neighbors are complaining, hey, these people in these homes are not cutting the grass, they're not doing this, that, and the other. Well, they have no ownership in it. You know, not even $50 is going towards the purchase of the home. So why would I want to live somewhere for 15 years and then, you know.
And I can't give you legal advice, but you should.
And then have to buy it, you know, and not invest any of the 15 years of renting it. So what happens is they get evicted or they move out or, you know, the turnover, but the builder got the tax incentives. So it's no ownership in this. So when it comes to the meetings, they do say, oh, we have affordable housing, but it's not actually affordable housing and it's not home ownership. But it's a trick because that's what they say. So what incentive do you have for the people that are in these houses and thinking, oh, you know, not understanding the programs that I'm going to be able to own this home? And then
I have someone that wants to address that. I don't know if she has the same story or she can help us.
I actually know her from the London area, and she went through this same situation, and I helped her as much as I could, and we got nowhere.
Yes. I have my paperwork with me. 15 years in this one home. So when I became a senior citizen, I wouldn't have to go live with all seniors, you know. That's a good thing for some people. But I liked being in a single home. I'm still there. But now I have to wait 4 more years. Brought all my paperwork with me. Credit score is unbelievable. Not boasting. Takes some work to get there. Okay. Oh, excuse me, baby. Put my 15 years in, but I need to wait 5 more. Why?
And not only did she have to wait, they came in and out of her house.
One year I won the Beautiful Home Award. You were right there. Can't remember your name, but I remember your face. Janae! Yes. I get emotional, excuse me, but this is not a joke. I have my paperwork with me for proof. In May, they told me I have to wait another 4 years. I don't want people coming and going another 4 years. It's unfair to me, and I don't deserve this. It's crazy.
Okay, let me do this. I'm doing some consulting because I am definitely out of my area, but I am hearing that there are parts, that what you're saying is valid, but there's other parts to the program. So I'm gonna ask my housing folks to give them a card, and let's talk, because this is new to me, that anyone would not get any ownership at all for 15 years and you pay.
But the building does.
And I believe, I mean, I have two people saying it. I'm just saying, this just baffles me that we have a program in this community that people are paying in. I mean, even when you do the land grant, the option to buy, a percentage or something goes in the till that you're paying in year 1 or 2, but to live somewhere 15 years and get none of the percentage to go to it, there has to be more to that. And we will personally have Larry, who is my housing and outreach person, to look into that so we can give you a better answer. Okay, thank you. We have one last person over here.
I promise I'll be brief. Play the music if I need to be quiet because I talk a lot. My name is Rhonda Gaines. I work at the Columbus Urban League. I do home buyer education, 700 credit score, so I can help you get your credit score to a 700 or above. I do landlord-tenant mediation as well. The question that I have is, I do not live in Franklin County. I live outside of the county. I'm a homeowner. But the main thing that I see when people come in that I mediate for and that need help, it's an issue that I see when I go to different events and things that are going on. If you have children, if you are under a certain income area level, they'll help for you. But if you are making decent money, and God forbid you lose your home, and if you're renting, they make you wait 30 days before you can apply for anything because your income is too high. Now, most people live paycheck to paycheck, so when you tell them to wait 30 days before they can apply for something, by the time they apply, they're in eviction court. If their car note's already 30 days behind, their car's picked up. So I think that's a real reason why I see a lot of evictions come through, because there's a lot of help for people that, if you have a lot of children, and I'm not shaming nobody, because I needed help before and I got it, and I thank God that I was able to get it. But if I lost my job today, I would have to wait 30 days before I can get any type of assistance. And I have a 7-year-old and a 21-year-old. And my income is too high for those 2 kids, even though my son still lives at home and goes to school. I couldn't get anything. I can't get food stamps. I can't get anything because it seems like the system is set up, either you're here and they try to keep you here, but when you're in the middle and you're trying to work and pay student loans off, if something happens, there is nothing to help you. So I go to all these different events that they're talking about helping people, and God, I want everybody to be helped. But I feel like I pay taxes, I pay into the system. If I need help, if I'm a renter and my landlord is not understandable of the situation I'm in, and he doesn't allow me to go without paying rent, because most people don't have a budget, they don't have emergency savings, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they're waiting for that next check to come. So my question I have for Ms. Favors is, the program that you're working with Impact, are you required to have children, and is there an income cap? So anybody that applies can get it? No?
So the details of the program, I'm sorry, I'm loud. The details of the program will roll out in the fall, and so we have a representative from Impact here. You all are the first ones to hear this. Like, I have not even talked about this at all publicly just yet, but the need is here to talk about it right now. So all of the details as it relates to how Impact will come in, and I believe, is it 90 families? How many people? We have the ability to help 92 families for an entire year. That's how much money that we're committing to the program. That does not account what legal aid is going to be able to do to make sure people have the legal representation to navigate the legal process as well.
So in the future, when we're planning these, if we can come up with something for people that are working, not saying, everybody should have a savings, but God forbid something happen, they don't, right, that they can receive help.
So, tenant-based assistance. Yes. But let me say to your point, because we just received the statistics, 60%
of Americans don't have $400 discretionary money. So this isn't just you, but last thing, it goes back again to us not having to make a choice. Because whether I'm already homeless and I stay homeless, or I'm thriving and working and become homeless, we're in the same pot together. So I think we have to look at programs and policies that we don't have to pick and choose. It has to be, some people if they own a home, they say, well, why are you in here complaining? Because I don't have a home. So we need to look at our policies so we can set the stage for everybody that's within a framework. Because there's never going to be enough money, there's never going to be enough policies. But I think today is the beginning of us trying to do something to move that needle. So thank you. Let me just end, because you have been so gracious with your time and your energy, and say thank you. Let me also say to Councilwoman Favors for being another elected official, for coming. She's new, the newest one, but she showed up. And I think you have to give credit for people with an open mic who showed up. Let me say thank you to Mayor Barnes from Urban Crest, who was with us this morning and was here again this evening to listen to this. I know we have other elected officials. We've heard from Senator Craig. I want to thank him for being here. I see the Honorable Judge Cherry Jameson in the back. I want to thank her for being here. And I know we had Mike Stenziano was here. I saw him in the back for a long period of time. And let me just say to our treasurer, who's been with us, and she is a treasure. Let me just say, for all the support that Cheryl has been with us all day, helping strategize, bringing information to us. I know it may not seem a lot. I know we're not able to answer all the questions tonight, but I will make a commitment to you. This is just the beginning. But you have to make a commitment to us that we need to think about this movement. Because I want to be blatantly honest with you. I don't want to come back to another meeting where we're just meeting and I can't look at you and tell you we removed the 20,000 or we helped somebody or we didn't have a tax fix. So we have to figure out to take all of this from everybody that's been scribing and report back something. I mean, we have to move the needle. And I just want to say thank you for being here. I take full accountability for anything that we're not doing, but I can tell you, I hear you, and we will do something. Thank you.